still had the same reputation. Of course, graveyard of empires, but with no state of its own. And then it crossed my mind that one of the points involved here is a Gandhian insight, which is that if we indulge in private revenge seeking, then organized social life becomes virtually impossible. What is the big problem in Afghanistan? Tribal rivalries going back to generations. Of your ancestor could be a member of my tribe, and therefore I am honor bound to avenge that. And of course, in the process that avenging, more injuries caused. So the original party now must take its own revenge, and the process never ends. And I think Gandhi's message then is that at the level of social life and living as a community with a government, we have learned this lesson. That we have to avoid the chaos of violence of this kind. See, if we are sitting in our house, somebody dashes in and steals something right in our presence, or even harms our children, and even kills them, what will be our reaction?
Kill them.
Yeah? What would be our unsocialized, primitive reaction?
Kill them.
To shoot him, to kill him. And yet, I think none of us in this room will do that. We will try to restrain or detain him and call the police. And this is an act of non-violence in Gandhian terms. And hand over the person to the police for the law to take its course. And even if there is a miscarriage of justice and the person is let off, even then you may not kill him. And you will not want to, because you know that it is better to live in a society which is law-abiding, even with occasional miscarriages of justice, than to live in a society characterized by vigilante. Now, when we have come this far in our personal dealings and dealing within our own social group, we have not learned the lesson that we are afflicted by the same problem when we deal with each other as communities and nations. Let's just imagine Second World War. Suppose the differences between Britain and Germany had been submitted to some arbitration. Even if it went completely against Germany or completely against Britain, would it not have been better than 50 million lives lost? And basically national boundaries remaining what they are. So I think this is Gandhi's great message, to even put it that way, that it is when we have to learn to use non-violence. When we have problems, we have conflict as communities or nations. And we will get the same benefits, we will derive the same benefits from it, which we now take for granted living within a nation, while living in the world in this kind of reform society. I guess that is all that I have to say. Thank you.
So thank you, Arvind, for these words very much. And I think the plan is that you are now available to sign copies of the book.
Yeah,
Yes? Is that right, Victoria?
Yes.
If anyone has questions,
Or if people have questions
Yeah.
or want to talk about these things?
That's right. Yeah, question.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Question is a good idea.
Discussion.
Always a good idea. Yes, first.
could you just quickly tell the Be the Change story of how that expression came about?
Which expression is this?
Is Be the Change you want to see in the
Oh,
world?
Be the change. Okay, this is a famous, one of the most famous statements of Gandhi. Kind of going around actually at the moment is, you must be the change you want to see in the world. You must be the change you want to see in the world. So if you want to see Quebec as a healthy bilingual society, you must learn to speak either English or French. No, the conclusion is logical but terrible, but for those who don't know those languages. So there is no escaping this according to Gandhi. Now, interesting thing, Sandra, about this is that nobody has found this exact line in the 100 volumes of Gandhi's writings. Exactly this line. And even the Yale Dictionary of Sayings, forget the exact name, says that people close to Gandhi have confirmed that this is what Gandhi said, this is what Gandhi meant, but they are still unable to get the exact wording out of Gandhi's own writings. Having said that, I think it is very true that this saying, in a sense, summarizes Gandhi's approach to life. And the point he is making is a very, very simple one. That any change we want to bring about has to start somewhere. Now, normally our tendency is to say or give a lecture on how the change should be brought about and what are the virtues of it and so on. How bilingualism is good for Canada and then sit down, kind of thing. And with Gandhi, actually sometimes practice even preceded precept, or the conviction. And the most striking example of this is that he became a vegetarian, remained a vegetarian, because his mother had asked him. And then he read a book by Salt, and he found his first vegetarian restaurant, which he thought was by the grace of God in London. And one of the first things he did was to buy a book by Salt on vegetarianism, a plea for vegetarianism. And then he said, I became a vegetarian by conviction. So the act comes first. And a very good example of very famous is illustrated by a famous anecdote of him, associated with him, that a family once took their son to him. And they said, he eats too much sugar. And we have tried our best to persuade him, cajole, that it doesn't work. But we think that if a person of your standing, global standing, were to ask him to desist, then he will follow. So Gandhi said, okay, but please bring him to me again after about 3 weeks. So Gandhi said, you should stop eating sugar. So the parents felt a bit outraged that they had to undertake this whole extra trip, to bring the son, for him to be told just this. So they asked Gandhi, why couldn't you have told him this at our first visit? I'm there. And then Gandhi said, in the meantime, I have reduced my own consumption of sugar. So Gandhi illustrates Schweitzer's famous statement, example is not the main thing, it is the only thing.
I mean, this particular anecdote is associated with Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, just as you said, that God figures in Gandhi's most of his actions, and it happens with other famous people as well. But I wanted to know if you have this, there is enough for everybody's need and not enough for everybody's greed, which is also normally associated with Gandhi. So is that also like
No, I think that I've seen in plenty. Yes, yeah. So some of his nice things are his own.
hate the sin but not the sinner?
Yeah. That of course is not his.
No? Okay.
That is, he's adopted that from Christianity. It's a well-known saying in Christian circles.
I came not long ago across some people who actually did a documentary film for the World Film Festival on Gandhi. Well, not on Gandhi, about some anti-Indian issues. They are of Indian origin. And they told me that they did a very thorough research, and they found out that Gandhi, not only was he not against the abolishment of the caste, but he actually wrote that it has to be preserved and it has to be intact. Now, he might have said, okay, untouchables, their conditions should be made better, but they would still become untouchables in his kind of philosophy. So how does that relate to any spirituality that is not equality? Maybe within the caste they're equal, maybe even within the caste they weren't equal before, I don't know. But apparently he was very strongly for caste system to be preserved. So could you please explain?
Yeah, sure. It's a very good question. First of all, the term caste system is very loose. It's like secularism, democracy. So many meanings which are attached to that term. It is not, and the sure sign of that is caste system is not an Indian word. Hinduism is not a Hindu word. No. So that is, we are using terms outside of the discourse, indigenous discourse to describe them. And different people mean different things. This will again come up later on and come to the second point. But the first point I want to make is to illustrate my earlier point with this untouchability thing. See, all of us agree that untouchability is bad. Okay? It's not a desirable condition for human beings to be like slavery is. So this